Hello everyone and welcome to the 2026 election hustings here in St Clement for Senators. It is great to see everyone here this evening. A huge thanks for giving up your evening and a big thank you as well to those of you who are standing. It really is great to see such engagement for this election. My name is Hannah Shelswell and I'm taking us through the proceedings this evening and keeping everything on track. Just to let you know that we are live streaming on the Vote.j YouTube account, so a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us online this evening. Just to let you know that you can access closed captions by pushing the button at the bottom of your screen if you are watching us. A recording will also be uploaded to the Vote.je website and the YouTube channel after this event this evening. Now, I'm sure that you are aware, but you can only vote for 9 of the candidates who've put themselves forward for this role. There are 9 island-wide seats available, and we've drawn lots this evening as to where everyone is sitting. We do that each time, so we mix things up. But in alphabetical order, your candidates are Martin Aliga, Tom Binney, Mark Boliat, Alan Brecken, Carl Bush, Guy DeFay, Lyndon Farnham, Ian Gorst, Serena Kirsten Guthrie, Mary Lahegara, Alan Lepavu, Steve Luce, Alan McLean. All are independent. Sam Mezek from Reform Jersey. Helen Miles, Elaine Miller, and Bernard Place, all also independents. The candidates have agreed this evening that they will speak for 2 minutes and then there'll be time for questions. So candidates will hear a single ding at 30 seconds to go and a double ding. They need to stop talking. Those are the rules of engagement this evening. So let's not waste any more time and we'll kick off with the 2-minute speeches, and Helen Miles is first. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you. Good evening, St Clement's. Thank you to all for turning out this evening. I'm Helen Miles and I'm an independent candidate. My background is in criminal justice with a 30-year career working for Customs and Immigration, Probation and Aftercare and the States of Jersey Police. I have a PhD in criminology and I've also been an independent member of the Public Accounts Committee. I'm currently a deputy for Saint Brelard. I've served as Minister for Justice and Home Affairs and I'm now chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. And that's given me a really balanced experience of serving both in government and on scrutiny. As a minister, I established the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force and delivered the Building a Safer Community framework to support early intervention against crime. I introduced a 3-year work permit to help recruit hospitality staff and also negotiated a scheme to increase the numbers of French day trippers to boost tourism. On scrutiny, I led a review which made recommendations to strengthen our vital parish system. I cherish Jersey's identity, history, language, and our traditions, which we must keep alive. I'm standing for Senator so that I can use my experience to help address our many challenges. We need to support lower-income families with cost of living. We must control state spending and live within our means. And we need to ensure that young islanders have hope of an affordable future in Jersey. St Clement is known for its superb community support team. Throughout my career, I've always championed honorary and voluntary service. In 2005, I was a founder member of the charity Autism Jersey, and I continue to fundraise for that charity. Government must listen, respect, and engage positively with charities, improve its commissioning framework, and provide a multi-year funding model. We live in a wonderful island, and with positive change, we can be optimistic about our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Miller.
Hello everyone, my name's Elaine Miller. I was first elected as a deputy in 2022. Since then, I've been Minister for Treasury and Minister for Social Security. Before being elected, I had a successful career in law. I was a Jersey advocate and the first woman to hold the office of Viscount. I try to find effective solutions to problems and to make sensible, thoughtful decisions. I can get things done and I've worked hard to deliver positive results. I brought the proposition that reinstated the role of senator. I reduced the cost of GP visits by £20 and increased pensioner benefits. I addressed cost of living issues by increasing the community cost bonus and by short-term reductions in social security. And I've supported the important work to ensure our financial services industry remains competitive. The cost of living remains a challenge. The cost of childcare, in particular, can put a family home out of reach, and I'd like to find better ways of providing for children. Alongside financial services, we must enable all businesses to thrive and grow our economy. I'll aim to reduce complex regulation and to promote growth by removing some of the barriers to new business. It's important we continue to control government spending and remove inefficiency. This will help us put more money into reserves to ensure future resilience. And I promote a population strategy that plans for the needs of young and old into the future, including education, careers, health and housing, particularly for older people. I've spent a lot of time at Avalon Park in the past as I had family who lived there, and we need more accommodation like that. Above all, we have to focus on finding solutions that work for Jersey. I will continue working hard to deliver effective outcomes that benefit our community and our economy, and I will always put the interests of Jersey first. I do hope that you will vote for me as one of your senators. Thank you.
Carl Bush.
Good evening, St Clements. I'm Carl Bush, standing for Senator. I come with experience, as do a lot of other candidates. My experience is primarily in community interest, but also local government back in the UK. I brought my community interest project over here, which is a social enterprise which empowers the local community to share their experience and skills for the benefit of the rest of us. And that focus is particularly on health and well-being. We're in a situation where, bizarrely, even though we appear to be an outwardly pretty fit, active population, only 54% of us attain the 150 minutes required or suggested required level of activity that we need to remain healthy and resilient in later life. And that is a big, big focus for me. We provide activity classes across the island, and also we've just started classes here on Mondays here through our project called Step 55. Now, why is all this important? Well, what we're seeing just recently, and specifically whilst I've been studying through this campaign, is that there is becoming a value that is set on activity, and that value is directly proportionate to the cost that we're spending on health and care. So I'm going to make an election promise here tonight, and if elected in my term, we will connect and provide the structure for 2,000 adults on the island to meet that required level of activity, and therefore I will promise that we will meet a target of 4 million by the end of my elected period term.
Thank you. Mark Boliat.
Good evening. I was born and educated in Jersey, and I'm a proud resident of this parish. Like many islanders, I've had a long and varied working life, from serving pints at the Smugglers Inn to chair and chief executive roles in business, charities, government and public bodies in Jersey and in Britain. That does not mean I know all the answers, but I think I know how to ask the right questions, how to work constructively to tackle difficult issues, to take good decisions and to implement them effectively. The government of Jersey has got too big. We cannot afford it. Nor can we afford tax increases that would be necessary to remove that deficit. Instead, we need to rely on economic growth, because that will give us the tax revenue we need to pay for the services that you need. The main obstacle to economic growth is simply the government. We have a regulatory system that gets in the way of businesses that want to expand, and indeed to people who want to improve their homes. We need drastically to reduce the amount of regulation, but of course in a way that protects our environment. And we need to preserve the competitiveness of our financial services industry. It gives us 2/3 of our tax revenue. I'm passionate about social mobility. Life chances are largely determined by the age of 5. Yet only 64% of children starting primary schools are at the expected stage of development. Some good work's been done, but we need to do more to give young people the best start in life. Jersey is a very special place. I want to keep it that way. If elected, I would work collaboratively with all members of the Assembly, with business and charities, to give you, the people of Jersey, the government you deserve. Thank you.
Martin Aliga.
Thank you. Hello, St. Clements. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a very interesting opportunity for me in the island of my in-laws. You know what? I'm married in Jersey. That's how I came to Jersey. I didn't come to work. I came for love. And I'm here to spread this love now in the States of Assembly, right? How are we going to do this? I need all your votes. All your votes. From 16 up to whatever age you are. You're blessed with a number of elderly people here. I am honored to stand before you today because your vote counts. I tell you what, when I made up my mind to stand in this election, there was a question I had to answer. And this question was, why do you want to go for senator when you could actually try deputy at St. Brelard's? I told this individual, I always thought about being something bigger than a deputy. You know what? The deputy is at a district. When the senator thing came, I was like, whoa, I'm going to go all over the island. That was where my attraction came. And guess what as well? When you do a job interview, do you expect to be known? This guy went on to ask me, but you're not known in Jersey. Why do you think you're going to be voted? I told him, look, I'm looking for a job that serves the entire island. Currently, I'm a residential child care officer. I work for the young people in Jersey, but I've been doing this for 10 years. And I think it is high time I up my game. With a master's degree in African International Development, I believe I could actually do much more and support our island. And the same person goes on to say, I don't think you're known to win elections. I told him, wait, let's give it to the people of Jersey. Vote for me as an investment. Thank you very much.
Steve Luce.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure for me to be back here tonight in the parish where I lived for the first 30 years of my life and where I started my education just up the road at St. Clement School over 60 years ago now, but I'm not telling you that. I'm running for senator because I supported the return of senators very avidly, and I also believe that senators should be ministers or ministers should be senators. And in the last 2 years, I've been the environment minister. I'd very much like to carry on doing that job because I'm hugely enthusiastic about the countryside, about everything to do with the land and the sea, and I still have the energy to work with both the farming and the fishing industries. My proudest achievement in the last 3 years, actually, has been achieving over £6 million of annual revenue for the farming and fishing industries from states every year. But the Environment Minister is so much more. I look after environmental health. In the last 2 years, I've introduced rent-a-dwelling licences, which I believe help both landlords and tenants. I have the state's vet under my remit. I brought in a new animal welfare law protecting both wild animals and domestic animals from abuse. And I have the responsibility for water. And with Tom on my left, we've started in the last year to address the PFAS issue. But there's a huge amount more work to do there. In planning terms, the next 4 years is vital. We will have a new island plan. We need to find more homes for young people so they can see a future in Jersey. And we need to rezone some land for light industry so we can continue to diversify the economy, provide much needed jobs. One thing I really like to do in the next 4 years is to work with farmers and fishermen to provide more food for our tables. I want them to grow more and catch more, and that we can help them by buying their produce. They can help us by feeding us. That could also help to address the cost of living issue. If you could consider me for one of your votes, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Binney.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, we've only got 2 minutes, and that's not really long enough to deliver a serious message. I could take the traditional approach, list all the problems that we've got, particularly the cost of living, and say I'm going to reduce spending, increase efficiency, and cut red tape. However, after 4 years serving in 2 governments, I can tell you it just isn't that easy. In the real world, it takes guts, and it takes experience and hard work, and even then, you don't always get what you want. Government can be reduced, but probably not by as much as people think unless we cut services. However, the process isn't actually rocket science. We need to identify and eliminate the work that government shouldn't be doing, then adjust the workforce accordingly. And that's going to mean job losses. It has to be done in a decent manner, and it won't be easy, and it's going to attract criticism, and it's something that people seem to avoid when they make bland statements. Anyway, concurrent with that, the next government needs a proper vision, and it needs to get on with it, and it needs to act much, much faster than we have in the past. I know some of my fellow candidates think I'm bonkers, but I want us to invest more of our strategic reserve into what we are as a place to live, to visit, and to invest. We live in a very competitive world, and in the areas where we need to be attractive, the island has become tired and complacent. In my past life, and one of my former colleagues and partners is in the audience, he'll vouch for this, we managed to achieve quite a lot by having a vision, moving fast, developing a product, and then working hard to sell it. And it worked pretty well. We've laid the foundations for this in the health service over the past 2 years, and it's what I'd like to see done now across the entire government. And it's with that in mind that I'm standing for a second term. Thank you.
Lyndon Farnham.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lyndon Farnham. I was born in Jersey. I have lived here all my life. I raised my family here. I am standing for election because I care deeply about the kind of island we're shaping for future generations. Around the world, we are seeing economic instability, rising cost, conflict, and growing pressure on living standards. And we are feeling those pressures here too. Since becoming Chief Minister in 2024, I have worked to restore stability across government, strengthen the management of our public finances, and getting government working together again. And we've made some good progress. We've enabled 153 islanders into home ownership through the newly established First Step scheme, delivered up to £6,000 a year of nursery support for 2 to 3-year-olds to support young families. Excuse me. Completed the rollout of nutritious school meals in every state's primary school. We are implementing the full 76 recommendations of the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force report. But we must build on this progress to ensure that Jersey once again becomes a place where young islanders can realistically aspire to own a home, raise their families here, and choose to stay because they feel confident about our future. I'm optimistic about Jersey's future. We are a resilient island with a hard-working, hard-working community of talented people, a successful local economy. We have a clean and safe environment in which to live. But these are challenging times. I believe Jersey needs leadership that is steady, experienced, and forward-looking, honest about the challenges, takes responsibility, and get things done. I also believe our best years lie ahead of us if we all work hard, have the confidence and determination to build them together. Thank you all very much for being here this evening. I hope you will consider me for one of your votes. I look forward to your question. Thank you.
Sam Mezek.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Mezek. I'm Jersey born and raised before graduating from the University of Westminster with a degree in law. And for the last 12 years, I've served as a States member in various roles, including Chief Scrutineer, and for the last 2 years as Minister for Housing. As I've been canvassing, I'm picking up on a feeling that I think is quite common among people in Jersey, which is that there are many here who can recall a time in this island where Jersey felt like it was a place that was on the up, where if you worked hard, you would enjoy a good standard of living, you could afford a home, you could look after your family and enjoy yourselves. But for many years, Jersey hasn't felt like that. The economy has stagnated, real terms earnings have been frozen, and let's face it, public finances have become unsustainable. So I believe that the next government of Jersey must turn the tide on this. I think there are three things that that government will have to focus on. It will have to address the cost of living, it will have to prepare Jersey for the challenges of the future, and it will have to restore accountability to government. I'm running for election because I think I've got a track record that shows that I can meaningfully contribute to this. I've been an effective politician, a decisive minister, and a capable leader of a team in the Assembly that is united and constructive. And I'm a team player. I've worked effectively in the coalition government led by Deputy Farnham, where I've delivered a successful first-time buyer scheme and laid the groundwork for much more to come in the future. And I'm a capable leader of the Reform Jersey contingent in the Assembly that's also made a positive contribution. So with your support, I hope that I can continue to play that role. There are two fantastic Reform Jersey candidates standing in this parish, and by working together and pushing in the same direction, we can turn the tide and make Jersey a place of hope and opportunity once again. Thank you very much.
Mary Lahegara.
Good evening. Born and raised in Jersey in a farming family, a career path in financial roles followed with 25 years in policing. Various roles, ranks and responsibilities, being promoted as Jersey's first female inspector. Political roles, I was the Health and Social Security panel chair. We delivered a mental health review and secured funding for a crisis bed at Orchard House. In 2024, I became the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, delivering the Violence Against Women and Girls recommendations and other public safety laws. Team working is one of my strengths. In policing, working in partnership with the public and other agencies, leading teams, delivering results in community initiatives to commanding critical and major incidents. I've employed a collaborative approach in my political roles, both in scrutiny and as a minister, working with teams to improve public services and advancing legislative reforms. Cost of living is clearly an issue for us all, but we need to work on our resilience and ways of resolving this in the long term, a holistic approach. Whilst the finance industry provides a huge amount of our revenue and needs to be supported, we need to be more self-sufficient, produce more, export less, which will reduce plastics on island transport costs and improving our environment. Support and encourage on-island upskilling programmes and continual development using further and higher education is necessary so we can promote on-island talent, encouraging islanders to return following study overseas. Let's not say no to someone because they lack experience, but say yes and we will develop them further. Jersey's infrastructure has suffered from long-standing underinvestment and making deferred maintenance and costly and hindering growth. We need to pursue a strategic value-for-money approach that protects taxpayers while keeping Jersey modern, competitive and connected. Cost analysis is essential when introducing new laws and regulations.
Alan Bracken.
Thank you. Good evening. Can I ask you to fish this out of your papers? I'm going to refer to some figures. It's what the states have been spending on the top 100 suppliers. And if you look at the figure for 2022, it's 218 million. And in 2023, it increased to over 257 million. That's an increase of over 38 million in that year, which equates to £746,000 a week or £106,000 a day. This is only the year-on-year increase, not the total. And on the back page, I've listed the ministers and assistant ministers because they are or were responsible. Of course, we can't get the money back, and they'll be looking for charging us for other things as well. And it appears nobody is actually accountable. And that is not satisfactory, and that is what ministerial government has delivered for us. You couldn't make that up. That is a financial fiasco. Take it home, have a good look. You'll see how money has been wasted, millions and millions of pounds. And against that spending background, I know speaking to people that they are really, really concerned about medical treatment. The waiting list for appointments has risen in 2025 by over 500. That's some of you, I assume, because people have told me that. And these are people that have paid in for 30 or 40 years. It's not appropriate for us that have paid in to have to pay again. That shouldn't be. We should be first in the queue, not last. And that's why I'm standing here tonight, not watching Coronation Street. Thank you.
Bernard Place.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Place, and I'm standing as an independent candidate for Senator because I believe Islanders are looking for practical and sensible answers to the pressures we face, especially the cost of living, housing and healthcare. After 40 years in public service, including many years as a registered nurse, I've worked from the front line in intensive care to board level. I understand both the human impact of public services and how difficult they are to run. Jersey now needs to focus less on promises and more on making services work better. Healthcare is our largest public service and one of the biggest pressures on public finances. Islanders rightly want spending that supports doctors, nurses and frontline care, not unnecessary bureaucracy and duplication. Now, before asking Islanders to pay more, we should first ask whether services can be delivered more effectively and more sensibly. That means better organised services and better value for money that the Islanders already contribute. Now, this election is also an opportunity to widen the experience and perspectives in the States Assembly. I respect those already serving, but there is value in adding practical experience to the Assembly, practical public service experience. Many people who read my Jersey Evening Post articles describe my approach as sensible. Now, I'll take that. Sensible is good. It's good for Jersey, because after 40 years in public service, I've learned that the loudest answer is not always the best one. The best solutions are usually practical, measured, sensible, and that is the approach I hope to bring to the States Assembly as one of your 9 senators. Thank you.
Alan McLean.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jersey is not working. Our young people are leaving, families are under pressure, costs are too high. Government is spending more than it earns. This is not sustainable. There is no magic money tree, only your money. It's time for change, time for those with political and business experience, time to deliver results. I know my way around. When I served as Economic Development Minister during the global financial crisis years, we didn't just talk, we acted. We merged the ports to save £1 million per annum of taxpayers' money. We created Digital Jersey. We created Jersey Business. We backed local enterprise. We introduced EasyJet and re-established the Heathrow route. As Treasury Minister, I delivered the medium-term financial plan, a plan that created discipline, controlled spending, and balanced budgets. I expanded the student finance scheme to allow more young islanders to access further education. That is the exact mix of discipline and bold restructuring we need now. Our primary focus must be relentlessly cutting government waste. We must utilize technology to deliver more efficient and lower cost public services. We must build a strong economy by removing unnecessary bureaucracy, regulation, and red tape, and by giving businesses the confidence to invest and create well-paid jobs. I'm not seeking to return because I want a political career. I hope to return because I care deeply about this island. We need a Jersey that works for everyone, a more affordable Jersey. Our young people deserve a future here, and our senior citizens deserve to feel valued and safe. I am confident that Jersey's best days still lie ahead, but only if we have the courage, discipline, and leadership to make the difficult long-term decisions now. My name is Alan McLean. I hope you will consider me for one of your 9 votes on June the 7th. Thank you very much.
Serena Kirsten Guthrie.
Good evening. Really nice to be here in what is my home parish, just down the road. Good to see some familiar faces here tonight as well. My name is Serena, and for those of you who don't know who I am best known as the ex-England netball captain and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. I loved my career. It took me all over the world, and I had the privilege with working with the best in the business. However, there was only one place that I really wanted to come back to when it was time to retire, and that was Jersey. So I was struck to find how expensive it was for young people when I came back and how friends and family were leaving. And so it's got me thinking, is there a part here that I can play for Jersey in public service? Because there's one thing that I did learn during my career in elite sport, and it's that when a team is losing, it's not the failure of an individual, but the failure of that team to work cohesively together. And that's what I feel the kind of where Jersey's at the minute. It feels like a team that isn't working cohesively together. It feels like we're a team that's losing. We haven't got a grip on government spending. Our island isn't bringing in enough money, and cost of living, as you've heard, is a huge, huge challenge. And this next government have got a big, big task of having to achieve spending less, doing more, and growing the economy. I do have some personal passions that I really want to fight for if elected. I care deeply about the good that sport can do for our children, and I want to put PE teachers back into our primary schools, because at the minute we're not doing right by our children here. And I care deeply about preventative health, to nip things in the bud, save money, and save lives. And I am interested in bringing a cheaper supermarket here. We've got Aldi and Lidl knocking on our door. We have to ease restrictions and work with planning to find a site and start helping people through the cost of living. I love to be one of your elected candidates, but you're in charge of selecting a group of people to take responsibility and deliver, and I will bring that mindset. Thank you.
Alan Lepavu.
Good evening. My name's Alan Lepavu, and I'm standing because Jersey needs practical, community-focused leadership at a time where many islanders are under real pressure. Through my work with the Bode Foundation, young people, families, and community organisations, I've seen both the strength of our island and the strain many are under. Too many people are struggling with the cost of living, too many families feel locked out of housing, and too many young people are questioning whether their future is here at all. That's not sustainable, and it needs urgent, practical attention. I'm not a career politician, and I'm not driven by ideology. I believe in listening, working collaboratively, and focusing on what works. I believe Jersey works best when three parts act together. A strong economy driven by commerce, an effective, focused government that produces policies and legislation that benefits our community, and a supported community and charity sector, properly funded where it delivers essential services. You won't always agree with every decision I make, but you will know it's thoughtful, balanced, and rooted in what's best for our community now and in the future. If elected, I will work hard, stay accessible, and focus on an outcomes-based accountability approach. Feel free to Google that one. I'd be grateful for your support on the 7th of June. Thank you.
Ian Gorst.
Good evening, I'm Ian Gorst, an independent candidate, and I'm delighted to be starting the week in St Clement, a parish that I had the privilege to represent for 6 years. I'm standing so that I can continue to be a strong voice for Jersey, defending our interests, promoting our economy, and building a sustainable future for our community. These are challenging times, and they call for experienced, calm, and serious leadership. People and businesses across the world are craving stability, and that is what Jersey must continue to offer. As Minister for External Relations, I've built strong relationships with Jersey's key political and economic partners. I've supported our financial services, agriculture, dairy, digital, and creative industries to grow and find new markets. We have a resilient economy, but we cannot be complacent. That is why I want to drive forward our competitiveness strategy so that we deliver economic growth, embrace innovation in the face of increased global competition. Investment in frontline public services is only possible with a strong economy supporting a diverse range of local jobs. In recent years, government has grown at an unsustainable rate. I have been, and I always will be, a voice for restraint to control public spending and ensure that you keep more of the money you earn. Government should be an enabler and interfere less frequently in our lives. We must improve how we engage with our vital voluntary sector. Jersey has always adapted to changing times. With strong, effective and proven leadership, we will do so again. I ask for one of your votes on June the 7th. Thank you.
And Guy Defay.
Good evening. Quite a few will remember when I used to be on channel television quite a long time ago. In fact, I spent most of my career in international television news in England and France. So I'm in a fairly good position to tell you that because of the fighting in the Middle East and the blockade of the Straits of Hormuz, the entire global economy is poised on the edge of a recession or certainly stagnation. That means our prime concern of cost of living is going to be almost impossible to control because Jersey imports so much and the disaster zone will be all around us. It's a global issue. So what can we do here? Cost of living affects the less well-off more than anybody else. And I think as an island, we should all be in this together. So what I do essentially is creative thinking, ideas and solutions, hopefully. So the idea I'll be putting forward is that we need to raise the income tax exemption levels higher, which will benefit those who are at the bottom end of the earning spectrum. Let's face it, those who are very well off will barely notice cost of living issues. GST should remain at the same as it is now, but of course, with prices going up, the revenue income to the government will be much larger than it is currently. And yes, we do need to take a bit more money off the those who are better off, but not via raising the Social Security cap, because Social Security only pays up to a limited level, and it's clearly unfair to charge people lots of money when they're not going to get much back. Now, we should just ease up at the top end. That starts to balance things out. Now, I've also been a domestic carer for my late mother over a few
Guy,
years.
that's time.
I'm so sorry. 2 minutes goes so quick, doesn't it?
It does. Thank you, Guy. Well, it is now time for questions. Everyone has delivered their speeches. You can leave the microphone actually at that end, I think. You can leave it at that end, yeah, don't worry. Thank you very much. Right, we've got two helpers who are going to pass around the microphone, so thank you very much for your help from the parish of St Clement this evening. When you've asked your question, if you could pass the microphone straight back to them, we'd really appreciate it. It's been discussed quite a lot between the candidates, but the decision has been made, because we're holding an event in each parish, that parishioners are given priority to ask questions this evening, and we won't be taking any questions from candidates who are standing nor elected members. We do ask that your questions are brief, so please don't make a long statement. We ask that you get to the question very quickly so we can get through as many as possible. I may need to ask you to shorten your question if you don't get to the point. I hope it goes without saying, but we ask that questions are not offensive in any way, and if they are, then you will be asked to stop talking and potentially to leave the room. It is very important as well that your questions are able to be answered by all 17 candidates. So please don't just ask a question that is relevant to one of them. And we do ask that you state your name and where you live before you start. Not your full address, but St Clement's will be fine. And if you can, hold the microphone nice and close so we can hear you, because if you hold it down here, we won't be able to hear what you're saying. That would be great. Thank you. Right, for this, we are doing 90 seconds for answers. We're taking 2 questions at a time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side of the room. We're going to take 2 questions. Then on this side of the room, we'll take 2 questions and we'll flip-flop accordingly. So the first 2, if I'd like to invite this side of the room or anyone on the back on this side, if you'd like to raise your hand. If you'd like to ask anything, we have a gentleman there. Thank you very much.
David Main Donald, St Clements. Question, would the government invest in another airline like it did with Blue Island?
Thank you. And do we have another question from this side of the room at all? If not, I'll go to the other side. Okay, anyone on this side of the room? There's a lady with her hand straight up. Thank you. If you could state your name and where you live.
I'm Susan Gary. And
nice and close.
Susan Gary, and I live in St Clement. I just want to ask, on the Fort Regent situation, have the states...
A bit closer, we still can't hear you.
Okay.
That's it, lovely.
Have the states considered an experienced leisure company to come to Jersey, build hotels, ballrooms, etc., and give them large tax breaks for a few years on whatever sort of deal can be negotiated? Example, Warner's, Trust House 40, Blackstone, and there are many others.
Thank you. So that was a question about Fort Regent for those who missed the beginning. Okay, so we'll start with those first 2, first of all. And Tom Binet, we're going to start with you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you both for the questions. Never easy going first because you don't have time to assemble your thoughts. But my simple answer to the first question would be no. Government doesn't tend to do things well. The private sector do. So I'd leave it to them. With regard to Fort Regent, would we look at external investment? The first job I got in government was infrastructure minister, and one of the first things that was presented to me was the 17th review of Fort Regent. It had cost £250,000. It said that it didn't work. The people in the private sector, without substantial government money, weren't prepared to invest, and that report went straight onto the shelf, collecting dust along with the other 16 that had been there before. I don't mind saying I'm breaking ranks here. I've not got that much faith in what's being proposed at the fort at the moment. It's not really a very clever place. It's very, very compromised in terms of its design. And if we're going to spend 110 million quid, I'd spend it in the community, putting in sports facilities in places and entertainment in places where people can get to, where the construction costs are actually quite cheap. You get twice as much value for money. In terms of what I did with the fort, I'd strip it back and I'd turn it into a fort and spend all the balance of the money in the community, putting facilities and entertainments where people can use them. Thank you.
I don't disagree with Tom on Fort Regent. I'm not a particular fan of throwing hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds up there, but it has fantastic gardens, it has fantastic walks, it has marvellous views around the island, and we should encourage people to go up there and make use of that facility. But I don't believe we need to spend hundreds of millions to do that. As for the airline, Guernsey have their own airline, costs them an awful lot of money. We did do a deal with Blue Islands, but that was in COVID time. It was vital that we had access to the south coast. We needed to people get away in emergency situations for medical appointments. Blue Islands hasn't worked out. Loganair have stepped in. They've got a much bigger fleet of aircraft. They will enjoy the economies of scale. They're already expanding their routes. I think they're going to do a really good job for us, but we do and have done a deal with them to provide, when we really need it, emergency services to Southampton for those people who really need to get away. That's the most vital thing.
I don't have experience in government investing in business, but my observation is, let's leave what belongs to the private sector to the private sector. I think government should do government stuff and not get involved into private sector stuff. Fort Regent, I think my question would also come in the same way. Is it safe for purpose right now the way it is? For when I listen to my seniors here saying, let it be used, let's not spend money there, but is it fit for purpose right now? Is it safe? I think we will have to spend some money. We'll have to do something. The community must be involved in it. And those investment entities that can provide us services, as long as they can show us that there is opportunity to invest, and there is opportunity for them to earn from it. I don't think that the population in Jersey will suffer the loss in any way. As long as they can pull for us a facility that we will use, and they will get resources, and after some time, they move on, and the property is ours, I think it will be a good deal. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. On the airline, no, the Jersey government should not take a direct investment in an airline, but we need to remember that our transport links, ferry and air, are vital to us. It's not a question of airlines queuing up or ferry companies saying, please, can we operate? We've got to attract them. There are airports, cities around Europe, around the world, that pay airlines to go to them because of the value that they bring. So we needed Blue Islands, and although one can criticise what happened at the end, I think the government handled that one rather well. Blue Islands out one day, Loganair in the next. So we need that link, it's really important. It's always tempting to say on any big investment, the private sector will pay. One problem with Fort Regent is that it is going to cost millions to be in any position before any private sector institution would invest. There's a huge amount of remedial work that has to be done, and that work can only be paid for by the government. The government has to decide, do we want to do it? When that work is done, then of course private capital will look at coming in. But private capital is not going to pay for the remedial work. Thank you.
Should we invest in an airline? Well, it's the airline industry is a sector, as with any other sector, it's business, and it's competitive. Now, the thing is, when you've got successful businesses, they'll always take over, and Loganair could see an opportunity there. It worked well with their model. So definitely not from a government point of view, an investment opportunity there. Over to Fort Regent. Again, looking at it from a business perspective, it's not going to wash. I think we need to make it attractive for investment, for business. And what do we do with it? Well, the accessibility is so awful up there for the community. I don't think it would serve a community purpose. I think it's got to be for the private sector. Hotels, conference centres, ballrooms, that would serve the purpose very, very well.
Thank you. Well, like everybody else, I agree we should not invest in an airline in terms of buying one. That would be disastrous and would cost us a fortune. What government did was it lent Blue Island money during the COVID period. It also lent money subsequently to make sure that it kept flying, and that was absolutely essential because that is how most people get to and from the UK for medical treatment, and we cannot put a cost on someone not getting to England for emergency surgery or surgery they need. It's not every day you do something that causes an airline to go into administration, and it's incredibly difficult. I really felt for all the people who may have lost jobs or lost flights. I do think we're in a better place with Loganair as a bigger, more resilient airline, and I think that really will stand us in good stead. Fort Regent, I think we should try and get better at using private investment. We're not very good at doing that, and I think if we can attract private investment to Fort Regent, it would be great. Other people have already talked about some of the issues we have with that. And if we brought in a hotel group and said, go away, give up a design, they could come up with a design, and before we know it, we would have a lobby group in the Royal Square saying, no, you can't possibly do that with our fort. We want it to be the way it was in the 70s. That is part of the problem we have in trying to move forward with the fort and create something new that isn't trying to recreate something that existed 40 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. When it comes to the airline, I'm going to echo what has already been said. I wouldn't advocate that we actually purchased an airline, but I think there might be things we could do to incentivise airlines to come here for our necessary routes. When it comes to Fort Regent, I'm really concerned about Fort Regent. If we do nothing, we end up with another La Folie situation. We've already voted some money to make sure that the roof literally stays on and it's wind and watertight. If we do something with Fort Regent as a government, it would involve us borrowing a considerable amount of money, and the state of public spending at the moment, that concerns me hugely. So the next government will need to develop plans for Fort Regent that will attract the footfall necessary that it can sustain itself. And all of that leads me to the conclusion that we should actively be seeking private entities to see what they can do for Fort Regent. I don't know whether we've approached Centre Parks. I don't know whether we've government have approached Warners, but it would be certainly something that probably should be done. Particularly, I think there's potential for hotel business there. Big chains potentially might be interested. What I would say, though, before we finish, is I wouldn't advocate the establishment of a casino at Fort Regent in order to fund it.
Guy, you're next.
Very quickly on should the states be backing an airline? No, I don't think so. If it's public money going into anything at all, I'd simply suggest it's about time we invested in a properly designed ferry that's all weather and gets from Jersey to UK, no problem, and we own it. We can train local people to work it. We have engineers, we have the skills, so let's do something sensible for a change. Fort Regent is driving me round the bend at the moment. I disagree entirely with everything I see before me. I have no idea why the old swimming pool site hasn't been converted to operate as a premier hotel, let's say a luxury hotel in Jersey. Let's face it, the views, apart from anything else, will be absolutely spectacular. On the seaside, you can see from Echo Tower to Warmore Point, and you turn around and you've got a view over the town. Why is there no hotel on the old swimming pool site with beautiful grounds in front of you? As to the rest of it, why do we have to have a master plan every flipping time? I suggest the best way to approach Fort Regent is a phased approach, starting with how do you get people in there? It's a fort designed to keep people out. That's problem number one. Then we can go and sort the rest out. I hope you all get where I'm coming from.
Not quite sure how I follow that. So I'll stay safe and talk about airlines. Post-COVID, of course, we all know that the airline industry changed quite dramatically, and it is now a rapidly changing industry. And most airlines do require some form of subsidy to fly anywhere because...
Are you okay at the back? Someone giving some assistance. I'll just pause the microphone a moment, Ian. Is everything okay at the back? Is she okay? We're okay to continue, you sure? Okay. Okay. All right, we'll just resettle. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for helping her out. Okay, we'll just resettle in. I think maybe we'll let Alan just come back in. Okay. All right, Ian, would you like to begin again? Do you want to start again, and I'll start my timer again?
Okay, I'm still going to avoid Fort Regent. So the airline industry has massively changed since COVID, and they do look at subsidy as part of a cost centre for them, and therefore us buying an airline I don't think is the answer. The open skies policy has served us incredibly well. It's why we've got EasyJet. It's why we can increase those routes. What we do need to do, though, is keep talking to those airlines and ensure that we keep those routes and we add new routes to them as well. I'd like to see more routes to City and to the City line as well. Because the bad news is that ultimately, of course, we're going to see even more change because of the war in Iran. And so we need to keep, as a community, in touch with those airlines, which the ports are doing, and make sure we've got that lifeline service with Loganair, but we're also making sure that we've got services into the future. That's going to be the most important challenge for us. Fort Regent, it's got to be a public-private partnership. There's a minimum that we've got to do to make it deliver something, but it's got to be a site that's available not just for our local community, but also attractive to visitors as well, because it can help us revitalise tourism as well. Thank you.
Airlines? No, definitely not. But I can see value in offering subsidies and things to encourage them and to increase the number of routes. Fort Regent, I did work for SLR when it was back in the day for a time, and so I knew Fort Regent quite well. There are issues with Fort Regent, whatever you put in there. As Guy said, it was built to keep people out. Unfortunately, it's also very difficult to get people from within it to outside. So it doesn't comply with modern fire regs and things like that. So whatever happens in there is going to be challenging. It doesn't meet the modern requirements, and it's going to cost an awful lot to get it to up to code where it can be used.
So yeah, David, I'm in agreement around airlines. I think Blue Islands was actually quite a frustrating airline. I think we all experienced a lot of cancellations and poor service before, unfortunately, when obviously it was no longer with us. So what I would actually quite like to see when it comes to airlines is stronger connections and relationships. Ian just mentioned it around with things like EasyJet. I'd love stronger inter-island connectivity with our airlines. I think that the next government have got to work better with Guernsey to enable this, because at the minute you've got a lot of, again, kids, school children. I've had an incident with netball cancelled this year because of poor travel. DFDS has something to do with that as well, but we have got to look closer and work closely together to make lives easier for islanders to get in and out of Jersey and Guernsey, especially. When it comes to the fort, I love the idea of the fort. I'm not sure that, again, kind of this centrally led master plan is always the answer. I live in the east. There are no sports facilities out in the east. I'm not sure why we can't take part of £110 million and spend a couple, literally just half a mile down the road, to build a community centre for the kids on Jersey Premium in this parish who aren't getting enough active and physical education. So there's a lot of work to be done around long-term thinking. However, public, public and private investment is going to be important. It's the only way forward. We can't afford as government to keep pumping money into the Fort Regent, so we have to find a way to take the public and private investment with us.
Investing in an airline, absolutely not. I certainly wouldn't agree with that. There's an old saying, in fact, which goes something like, how does a billionaire become a millionaire? The answer is buy an airline. I'm afraid Guernsey found that out to their cost and are still paying the price. They're hemorrhaging tens of millions of pounds since they purchased their share in Aurigny to keep their connectivity up. What we did, we opened up the skies here, as Ian was alluding to, which allowed us to attract an airline like EasyJet. EasyJet come here not because we buy into EasyJet, obviously, but because we provide incentives. So they wanted discounting landing charges, discounted or joint marketing programs. So you invest with an airline, it's a partnership, and that's exactly how we should go in the future. The great thing about EasyJet is that they provide fabulous value in terms of fares, and of course we have access through their website, incredible pull for tourism to bring people in and out of the island. So expanding that network, as has been the case, is because we've worked hard at it over a long period of time. As far as Fort Regent is concerned, I'm not a great fan of government trying to deliver projects. We can see from many projects, dare I mention the hospital, how difficult it is to manage. And therefore, I wouldn't like to see us investing in Fort Regent as a government. What I would like is a private-public partnership. I do believe there are opportunities with big leisure groups who will invest. Government will have to put some money in. It's a partnership. But they will then take the risk and invest themselves. And we stimulate tourism and we provide things for young people locally to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fort Regent, I managed the vaccination centre at Fort Regent for 6 months, so I know it's damp, and I work with Barbara, one of your esteemed representatives already, and she knows about that as well. So there are two parts. There's restoring the heritage asset, which we have to do, and then is it a going concern? So I think we should focus on the first part first and make sure we're getting good value in restoring the asset. In terms of an airline, no, the government should not be in the airline business. We should have the mixed economy of BA and Logan Air and EasyJet. That's a fantastic mix. But we should be asking whether there should be a single regulatory safety body across the Channel Islands, why we have duplication in that part of our business, and why we couldn't have an integrated Channel Islands airline network where each island could run its airlines the way it saw fit, but share the costs of the regulatory system and the safety system. So we need to be curious about that and what's getting in the way of that, because that's if we don't do that, there's a duplication of cost. And what we could do is combine the expertise, subject always, of course, the ability to have good relationships with Guernsey. I'll leave that thought with you.
I don't think we should invest in an airline. If we look at what Guernsey have done with Aurigny, it's cost them about £5 million a year in losses. With Fort Regent, like many of us years ago, we had family membership, and it was a thing of the time, and it was enjoyed. And it also attracted BBC Seaside Special. It was primetime TV for about 5 or 6 Saturdays on a Sunday. And we also used to attract the top artists. So I think we should be bold. And I'll tell you why I say that. Last year, Tom Jones done a concert at York Racecourse, and it sold out. 30,000 people. Now that's the way we should be thinking and be positive about it. And if we can attract private investment, we do the basics. I think it's good for the community and be things for young people to do as well. Thank you.
Like everyone else, I don't agree with investing in an airline. However, what I would say is it's important to realise that when we need to assist for medical purposes, then we need to do so. So during COVID, that was obviously a part. And also when the airline was due to go into liquidation, again, we assisted in order that those flights didn't suddenly stop. I think the idea of investing and encouraging other airlines to come to Jersey is a good one, because connectivity is important to us all for many, many factors. In relation to Fort Regent, I'm probably one of the people here that remembers it in the good old days. What I think we need to ensure with Fort Regent is to make it safe, because at the moment it probably isn't. And what we really do not need is any incidents in relation to young people experimenting up there, because I think that's probably quite likely. So I think we need to make it safe. In relation to the facilities that were available up there, we do lack a really good quality event space. I'm no expert, but we need to find somewhere for that purpose. And I don't know if Fort Regent's the best, but I think we really do need to encourage big acts, things to come back here, because there's nothing for young people to do.
Thank you, David. So no, of course, we shouldn't invest in an airline for the very simple reason that we don't need to. When Blue Island was collapsing, as tempting as it might have been to have nationalised it and, of course, renamed it Red Islands, that, of course, thank you, I'm glad that one worked. It would, of course, been an absolute financial black hole for the island, and this transition to Logan Air was remarkably smooth, and we've been well served by that. And isn't it nice to be well served by at least one new travel operator for the island? For Fort Regent, Susan, yes, of course, that's a fantastic idea and definitely something we need to look into. I think there's just 2 points that I'd make. The first is that mothballing Fort Regent would also be really expensive. If we had to take off the roof and make the structure safe so that it wasn't harmful, we'd still be spending a fortune, so we may as well spend money to make it a fun place once again. And if a private operator was to be part of that equation, then it would be good to try to work with them to still encapsulate as many local businesses as possible in that, because there are local providers that could work with them too. And I already know of some businesses that would like to operate in Fort Regent because the nature of it as a structure with all the little rooms around the side, there are lots of places that you could make it very vibrant and have some interesting and fun stuff to do. And working with our local businesses, an experienced off-island provider and government could make that work.
Thank you, Sam. There's not a lot more to say. We're well served by airlines, Loganair, Smooth Transition, already expanding the number of routes they're offering. We've got new routes coming onto Europe with KLM and regular flights to France, which are welcome. Guernsey have invested a huge fortune into Aurigny, and it's costing them many millions of pounds. Fort Regent has to be a private-public a partnership, and advanced conversations with top UK leisure and entertainment operators are ongoing at the moment. There's a lot of interest. We're hearing about youth leaving the island. One thing I can say is the plans for Fort Regent have been incredibly well received in schools, and by young people. We're in a bit of a dilemma because if we do nothing, because we've neglected it, just keeping the structure up is going to cost many tens of millions of pounds. And yes, we need a hotel up there. Hotel operators are interested and have great views. Have a fantastic view of Guy's incinerator, which he built when he was Minister for the Infrastructure. Thanks very much.
Thank you. You keep hold of that. Lyndon, I know you've just finished, but we're going to come to you first on the next round of answers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, it's time to take 2 more questions. I have a hand up over there, and I have a hand up with a blue top on. So blue top first of all, and then we'll come over to you on that side. Thank you.
No. Mark Matthews, St Clement. Do the delegates, would they consider return to the committee system? Would that be a good or bad thing, considering some of the ministers have made one-off decisions on their own and they've been a bit dubious? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was the gentleman over here with the red leaflet in the air. Thank you. If you could just tell us your name and where you live, that would be great. Thank you.
My name is Martin Carolan. I live in St Clement. I just want to say, first of all, that it's encouraging that all the candidates want to do something about the cost of living, which we're all feeling at the moment, I guess, and also about government spending to bring it under control. That's a good thing because the government really doesn't have any money. They have our money that you then commit to spend how you see fit. And on that point, I'd just like to say, I don't know if everybody's aware, but the Jersey government, in its wisdom, signed up to the Paris Agreement on climate to meet net zero target by 2030.
So can I ask, with those points, what your question is?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's important to know that we employed a company called Oxera to tell the cost of this. And by 2030, it's estimated between 60 and 360 million to achieve net zero. This is for an island that emits 0.001% of carbon. Can the panel say whether they feel that's money well spent, or would they rather it spent on things like MRI scanners and more doctors? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lyndon, we'll start with you with the answers.
Right,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm one of probably the only members on the panel, I know there's a few older ones knocking around, who has worked in the committee system and in the ministerial system. And it's quite often, it's the people that make systems work, not the systems itself. But we have to remember that the committee system was changed because the island was very unhappy with it at the time. It's been 20 years since the ministerial system came into place, and I think in the next assembly we need to have a good and thorough review it to decide whether we're going to carry on. Both systems have their advantages and disadvantages, but it's about the people we put in there and their ability to actually work together in the best interests of Jersey, not in their own best interests. I think I encourage sustainable development that sensibly balances growth in relation to the environment. I think we've gone a little bit too far. I support moving towards what we're aiming for. It's unrealistic, the targets we have set. It's too expensive. So I support it as long as it's affordable and sustainable for islanders and we get our priorities right. So I think the answer to your question is yes, we need to be careful what it costs and be mindful of our place in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm afraid that I wouldn't commit to returning to the committee system. I think the state spends more than enough time talking about itself and going over these issues over and over again, distracting us from getting on with the day-to-day job of trying to improve life for islanders. If we were to look at elements of our system to prioritise, I would prefer to see a reduction in the number of states members and a reform to our electoral system that puts more power in your hands to pick the government that you actually want to be led by, and I think that would be preferable to look at instead. Martin, to be perfectly honest, I think the carbon neutral roadmap is pretty much a work of fiction now. And I think we probably sold the island something false by giving them that and putting it on paper when it was never really going to happen. That being said, there are still elements of the agenda that we ought to be passionate about, because there are things that we can do, forgetting about carbon emissions for one moment, that would just make our quality of life better and take advantage of decent economic opportunities. One thing that Deputy Rob Ward, the Education Minister, did was work with Highlands and Jersey Electricity to set up the Green Skills Academy. That's something that gives young people skills, jobs, opportunities, and they go out there and make people's homes more energy efficient, which is cheaper for them and better for the environment. That's all a win-win. So can we focus on some of that kind of thing instead of the more unpopular stuff that hasn't really enamoured the public to that agenda?
I've never worked under the committee system, and of course if the system works well in relation to ministerial government, and I've worked in scrutiny and in government, and of course it's clear to remember that the purpose of scrutiny is to be a critical friend and you're supposed to work together. That can have its challenges. My concern in relation to a committee system is that the reason that they removed it was because we never got any decisions. So that's the reason it was changed. But I've got no issue about it being looked at if a different system could be considered. In relation to the Paris Agreement, I think things have significantly changed over the last couple of years, in particular to some of the larger countries who, if they're not doing anything, makes us in a very awkward position. I think it is important for us to do as much as we can to protect our countryside, and I'm happy to, in order that we would look at some opportunities that aren't going to cost us millions and millions. So I think we need to have a balanced idea of what we're going to do next.
I did work under the committee system, and to a great extent it did work, because some of the portfolios are quite big, like health and education. And with education, you had 5 primary schools, a senior school, governors, and various things, so you spread the workload. The problem with the ministerial government at the moment, I think, as I've shown here, there is no or not enough checks and balances. And I think we certainly needs, and I would support, review, a proper comprehensive review, because somebody who we don't know, we've never heard of, could be elected and could change our lives by making decisions that affect our finances, like taking away our bus passes or something like that. That's an example to save money. Now, regarding the environmental issues, I think any of it needs to be sensible. There's talk about, ending being able to buy petrol and diesel cars and things like that. The UK have changed their position on that, and we are small, so I think it's sensible steps that work for Jersey. And I know you mentioned the Parish Convention and the agreement of that, but then any of this, we can move as the times are appropriate to change that, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. I would be prepared to consider the committee system without a commitment to actually return to it first. We mustn't kind of prejudge the outcome. There are a lot of people saying it would be helpful, so let's think about that. But do that against a revised model of scrutiny, where we're much more open to inviting lay expertise into scrutiny, people who actually may be wanting to stand for government, but actually are put off by our process of elections, but still want to make a contribution to the governance of this island. In terms of climate change, I think we should be more pragmatic and proportionate in the current times. We should really be focusing on the things that we can do in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of reducing waste, improving public transport and supporting innovation. All those things are in our power to do without thinking about what the major issues in the world are that we can't solve. So I would be much more pragmatic and proportionate about climate change.
The committee system clearly wasn't working, which is why it was changed in the first place. And I'm sure for those of you here that remember the time, Clothier made the recommendations, and the concept was, and he made it very clear, that all those recommendations should be adopted as a whole. And of course they weren't. The states decided to cherry pick them. So it's hardly surprising that the system isn't working perhaps as it was intended, or as well as I'm sure you would like. And frankly, I'm sure as the members of the public, you don't really care whether it's a committee system or a ministerial system. What you want is good outcomes and good decisions from your elected members. That's what really matters at the end of the day. I do think that the ministerial system needs to evolve. I've always thought that. And I know that a former Senator, Jean Lemaitre, is proposing a petition to go before the states. The idea is to review the ministerial system. I think that's actually positive, providing the terms of reference are correct and proportionate. I think we do need to look to make the system better, work better for you as members of the public. As far as spending and the Paris Agreement, I mean, the sums of money are absolutely outrageous, 360 million. Practical, proportionate, we need to move in that direction, but at our pace, at the Jersey pace, do the right things, but that sort of money is just completely unaffordable.
So to answer the first question, Mark, yes, I am in support of a review of the system. One of the reasons why I'm passionate about running is because, for me, I spent many years trying to figure out the right conditions for performance and for teamwork. And I think at the minute, the current system is not conducive for performance or teamwork. That's creating a culture issue, which essentially isn't serving Jersey as best as it should and could. Accountability, I think that's something that we certainly need to lift and raise here in Jersey. I've been reading through some of the council ministers' laws, and at the minute, for me, there's not enough accountability. The public don't know what we're spending, what it looks like, whether we're taking on recommendations for reports. The Clothier report's a great example of a recommendation that we just thought we knew better and decided to take what we thought we knew worked, and it's clear that it doesn't. So whatever happens next, if we are going to have a review, can we listen, please? And just get on with trying to deliver good public services for you and legislation. In terms of the Paris Agreement, 360 million, did not realise how much that was. That is a crazy amount. I think we can actually look to invest more in things like cycle pass, better bus routes, more rewards for islanders to get out, be healthy, and keep our emissions down that way before we look outwardly globally. Let's get ourselves our eggs in a row here first before we go spending heaps of money on something that doesn't seem to me realistic.
Thank you. Committee systems, I would more than happy go back to a committee system. I really think we need to develop better teamwork within the government, and there seems to be too many people that are in government which don't really appear to have very much of a role. So I'd like to see more inclusivity in amongst the entire assembly. As for the climate agreement, it's overreached, completely overreached, and I think really what we should be looking at is how we can do things simply over here. Things like changing our building codes to make the new houses more energy efficient, looking at bringing, including solar panels on roofs, so we can start developing some energy security, which we don't have at the moment. We're completely reliant on a extension lead to France. And we know they could just do that anytime. And then beyond that, well, if we want to go really, I mean, we need to look at investing in the infrastructure around the island. The electricity infrastructure isn't there for anyone to be carbon neutral. So there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. We were asked in St One whether we would support a review of the committee system. I think all panellists said they would. The problem with the ministerial system from my perspective is that it's division by design. It divides the assembly, and therefore people don't work together and they're more confrontational. I think there's a way we can get round that without going back to the committee system, and that's better teamwork and involving more people in those decisions and being round the table. So I think there is an opportunity there, but I said that I would support a review. Net zero. Cost of energy is one of the driving forces behind the cost of living crisis. We see that right across the world. And so we should be focusing, I think, on the cost of energy and not necessarily on whether it's carbon neutral energy. And the reason I say that is because the people at Jersey Electricity are already doing a fantastic job providing us with low carbon electricity. So let's focus on what we can do to drive down the cost of energy, because we are going to have to spend money on things like sea defences because of rising tides. So let's focus money here in Jersey to do things that actually will benefit all citizens. And I sometimes think, rather than focusing on net zero, we should just get back to living a bit more like our parents did. Putting on a jumper, not wasting food, and recycling. Thank you.
I was first in the States with the old committee system, and I actually voted against ministerial government. It came as quite a surprise to find myself as the only deputy on the first Council of Ministers. The downside was that people felt disconnected from government by being in scrutiny, and that was clearly a problem. So I'm all up for a review. Right, net zero. Well, come on. Let's not kid ourselves. Nations around the world are not poised, holding their breath, waiting to see what world-leading Jersey is going to do. I think it's been a bit of a disaster, quite frankly. I'm not even sure whether it's worth pursuing. And let's not forget this. Our island has some fantastic private car collections that could, in years to come, become a major tourist attraction. Everywhere else has gone electric, but no, you can come to Jersey and drive a petrol or diesel driven veteran vehicle around the island and have some fun like the good old days. I'm up for that.
Well, in the words of Deputy Gorst, follow that. I think I agree with everything that's been said before, and certainly having worked in government and on scrutiny, I agree that ministerial government should be far more inclusive than it actually is. And I certainly perceive that the significant public satisfaction with the operation of ministerial government. I think, generally speaking, politics should be about working together in the public interest, not politicians squabbling and set against each other, which is a natural conclusion of scrutiny and ministerial government. I would support an evaluation to see whether the Clothier report actually met its aims. I suspect that it hasn't. We have cherry-picked it. And of course, one of the main features of the Clothier report was the establishment of a fully functioning party system, which of course we do not have. There is an ongoing petition for review, and certainly if the government weren't prepared to back that proposition, if I was in government, if I was in the Assembly next time, I certainly would. When it comes to the climate change, I once again agree with everything that's been said. We're a small island. I don't think we should be a trailblazer for this. Perhaps we can be what they call a fast follower. That said, we need to do what we can. We need to be better at recycling. We need to be better at reusing. And we need to take proportionate steps towards carbon neutrality, because we simply cannot afford the sums that are predicted.
Thank you. I sometimes get the feeling that the committee system is like someone that's been to prison and has been rehabilitated into a really good thing, when in fact it possibly wasn't such a good thing, and that's why we changed it. I think a review is a good idea. We should do that. I would be reluctant if that review comprised bringing in a bunch of experts from another country who were going to tell us we've got it all wrong and we should do it their way because they've got a better idea. They know how to run Jersey better than we do. I think we need to devise a system and make sure our system works for ourselves. I don't entirely agree with the notion of ministers running around with complete unfettered power. That's not been my experience over the last 4 years. We have a budget. People are controlled by the budget, which the Assembly agrees on. The Assembly can change that every year. They can amend it. And once we've got that budget, we all have to live within it. Clearly, that hasn't stopped spending. There are lots stopped spending increasing, but there are lots of ways we can do that. And we do have to get better at working together across the Assembly. We don't need a review to do that. Carbon neutral, I agree. There is nothing we can do here that will change, that will affect the climate. What we need to do is make sure that when we are spending money, we do it in the best interests of Jersey. So sea defences, making sure we've got sustainable electricity, making sure we've got sustainable water supplies. We could be looking at drought in 20, 30 years. We need to make sure that we get electricity when we turn the switch and we get water coming out the tap, and that's what we should focus on. But we should all be doing our part in the meantime. Thank you.
Yes, net zero. Well, isn't it a shame that we're just losing track with all this? If the room was full of children and teenagers, I just wonder what the response would be from them. Children are growing up, and they're very, very concerned about the world that they're growing into. Net zero goes hand in hand with sustainability, and the ethics of sustainability is not to kick the can down the road, not to kick that problem down the road for future generations. And when we come to October and November time, when the wind blows the roof off your house, is it then that you have a different attitude to net zero? Of course, we don't have the economy of scale to make a difference on the global arena, but I don't think we should lose our connection with the idea that we need to be doing the best for future generations. Social enterprise and sustainability go hand in hand, and when you come to saving costs on things like a scanner, there are other ways of doing it as a social enterprise, and that is by addressing the issue that basically only 54% of us are attaining the required level of activity per week. That's what we need to look at.
On the committee system, I agree with parts of what Sam, Alan and Ian have said. I'm trying to remember which bits of what they said I agree with. I worked in the committee system in the City of London for 17 years. It did not remotely work in theory, but it worked jolly well in practice. And that's Sam's point. People make systems work. Generally on that, I wouldn't favour going back, but I take Ian's point, absolutely. We've created division. Scrutiny too often is opposition. I don't think we've got enough talent in the Assembly, and that's not a criticism of the members, it's simply the size, in order to have an effective scrutiny function and a government function. So I think every member of the Assembly who wants to play a part in government should be able to. Do we need a review? I'm inclined to think we can actually just get on and do some of it. On carbon neutral, my favourite subject on which I've written about, a reminder, every single member of the States Assembly voted in favour of a carbon neutral roadmap with a target of reducing emissions by 68% by 2030, 6% a year. And then the Assembly did precisely nothing to achieve those targets. The first year's figure was 0.2%. And that says everything that is wrong about the way that the States Assembly has operated. Virtue votes. Let's all vote for something that sounds great and do precisely nothing to achieve it. That's what we need to reform. No measures without proper consideration of the impact. Thank you.
Mark, I must say that that was a good presentation. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You give respect where it is due. And I would like to say that the issue about committee or ministerial have we looked into personalities, big egos? Whatever the system is, sometimes it's actually not the system, it's the people with their hidden agendas. We are here, 17 of us. You're looking for 9 people. We are telling you whatever we're telling you. Are you ready to mark us with what we are saying when we get to become senators? Because immediately we are elected, or immediately leaders have been elected, it's like the voters sit back and now forget and say, okay, do our job now. I would like to see a community that follows track of their leaders. And you have to check leaders in their role as we go. Right now we have internet. We have all sorts of ways to track any minister, any leader, any senator, or even deputy and connetab. I've learned that word, eh? Connetab. And you see, we can track these people, but we wait for everybody we wait for the leaders to do their job and wait for 4 years, then we come and sit and question. I think it is more to do with people than the ministerial system. As for the other one, Mark made it a good presentation. Thank you.
I'd absolutely agree. It's about people. I'm sure there were good committees in the past, and I'm sure there were not so good ones, and I'm sure there's some good ministries. But the way I've always worked is to engage with my scrutiny chair and the deputy chair, take my assistant minister and the scrutiny panel. I've always sat down with them and said, right, we work together and make this the best we can. And if I'm not doing good enough, you tell me as a critical friend. You don't object. We work together and move forward. So I think we stick with where we are. It's the people in the system that make the difference, not the system itself. Martin, your question about cost of living and Paris Agreement. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. 5 years ago, we were in a very different place in this globe, and things are changing. And I've always tried to make it affordable for islanders when it comes to carbon. There was a policy in the carbon neutral roadmap about banning the import of petrol and diesel vehicles in 2030. I did a lot of work with the public and the motor trades earlier this year, and I have removed that ban. It's going to be a more affordable way for islanders to move forward if they've got the choice, rather than us telling them what they have to do. As for scanners and health and carbon neutral, Tom gets 380 million, I get 8 on an annual basis. There's a big difference. But what I would say in conclusion is, we can opt out of carbon if we want to, but the world is not going to opt out of allowing us to feel the effects of climate change. Our waters are warming, our fish and crab, lobster are leaving, our animals are getting diseases.
It's always a little bit difficult going last because most of what needs to be said has been said. I have to say, I think Ian summed up my views pretty well. I wouldn't return to the committee system. However, I would opt for a hybrid. What we've got at the moment is very adversarial. It's a them and us situation. I don't think that's good for anybody. In terms of changing the system into a hybrid, I think we can do it ourselves. There's 49 of us, and we're the ones that are dealing with it. And I think we should be able to get on and come back with something that actually works. With regard to net zero, I think the question was quite specific. Would I prefer to spend the money on health? And I think you'll agree I'm the wrong person to ask. There's a very obvious answer to that. We've got a cater for 103,000 people. The unit cost per person of delivering a comprehensive service to everybody at that scale is very high per capita. So it does need extra money. People moan about the amount of money that goes into health, but if you want a proper service, it does need paying for. I will say that we've just put a scanner in, and that's relied on charitable funds. So the last scanner that went in cost over £2 million, and that was charitable funds. We're trying to secure a surgical robot, and there's no money in the budget for that, and that's going to we're trying to use dormant charitable funds. So that's where we are at the moment. So do we want to save the climate and kill our people? No, let's save the people first and worry about the climate later.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go out for more questions now. We have a gentleman here in the turquoise top at the end. Thank you. If you could tell us your name and where you live, thank you.
I'd like to ask the...
Can you just use the microphone so we can hear on the live stream as well? Thank you.
I'd like to ask the candidates if they were elected as a chief minister, and there is currently in Jersey at the moment 2 socialist parties, one and a bit parties. If they were elected as chief minister, would they invite, as an independent, one of those members of those 2 parties onto the Council of Ministers?
And could you just tell us your name and where you live, please?
Say your name and where. Terry Lamar.
Terry Lamar, thank you. Anyone else? I have someone at the back, thank you.
Seeing as this hall is, I would say, 50% full of pensioners, would it be a suitable time to ask if the standing members would reconsider this double tax imposed on pensioners, so at least we could get back to living a life prior to this double tax situation?
Thank you. Could you just state your name?
Bourgeois, St. Clement.
If you could just tell us your name and where you live.
William Le Bourgeois, St. Clement.
Thank you, William. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to start this time with Guy Dufay. You're up, Guy.
Yeah, straight into double tax, because I emailed someone about this the other day. I would not tax Jersey state's pensions, the ones paid out of the social security payments that people make through their working lives. I would, however, look at private pensions. Some people have extremely large private pensions, and I think that there has to be a level above which your income does need to contribute to the rest of the island. I wouldn't go hard on it, but I would certainly put a graduated tax on additional private pensions, but the States of Jersey pension, no, I don't think that should be taxed. The other question, crikey, socialists on the Council of Ministers, eh? I guess if they could demonstrate an understanding of small island economics, I'd go, yeah, come on board.
I'll speak to the pension taxation issue, and I know that there was a 5,000 people signed a petition for the states to have an in-committee debate, and generally I think people felt that the result of that debate wasn't very satisfactory. What I am saying is that one of the reasons when I was Treasury Minister that I increased tax thresholds by over £3,000 was to alleviate the effects of the high cost of living right across the board, not just pensioners but low-income people as well. And that's why I say in my manifesto that I will and think that raising those tax thresholds is the right answer, because what happens with the tax is all of your income is added up. If you're over the threshold, then you pay tax. So I don't think it's a straightforward question, but I do think there should be a wider review of the Social Security Fund. We've got over £2 billion in that fund. We've got an ageing demographic. We've got Tom, who says that people are waiting too long and not able to have health. We've got a health insurance fund that's underfunded. We should have a proper conversation with the public around all of these issues and have a conversation about where we want to land, because we need to throw in supplementation as well. In answer to Terry's question, he knows that I said no in the past, and that's why I didn't get the votes. I believe strongly in... I think that was saved by the bell, but my position's not changed.
I'll take question one first, Terry. I think it depends on who's got the skills to do the job. Regardless of their political ideology, if they can do the job, they should be doing it. And that's it. As for pensions, I've got friends who are accountants, and I've asked them to explain the Jersey tax system and double taxation, and none of them can. So I'm not sure how I'm supposed to understand it, but I'm prepared to learn. if we're paying tax on our money that we put into the Social Security Fund, and then we're taxing it when we get it back as old age, then I don't think that's right. Absolutely not. But, like Ian says, there's a lot of people in this island who've got fantastic pensions, and I don't think they should stop paying when they're earning £80,000, £90,000 in pensions. Thank you.
Hi, Terry. In answer to your first question, I'm a bit similar to Alan. You know, I'm a big believer in skill sets and finding the right people for the job. And if I were to put myself forward as Chief Minister, that's exactly what I'd be getting into. Who are you? What do you believe in? Where do you stand? And ultimately, do you believe in aligning with a group of people to work together? Because that, for me, has been the biggest issue, no matter where you stand for the last 10 years on this island. And I think that's really where I'd be coming from at the core as a teamwork person. Pensioners, yeah, look, my mum and dad are really concerned about this. They're very close to being able to access their pension. I'm worried for them in terms of the cost of living and obviously the healthcare pressures going on in the island. I think we do need a review of social security contributions. I think we need to look at the fact that pensioners, old people, are going to be living for longer as well. So we need to look at how we actually allow maybe income allowance for pensioners so they're not actually getting punished for wanting to stay and connected to the economy as well. So I think there's lots of things that we can do. It's not just as simple as removing tax. I think it's a whole system review to make sure that pensioners have choice and are not feeling squeezed. I think it's very unfair to get to the end of your life and feel trapped. And you deserve better. So I would be standing for that.
Yes, I appreciate the sensitivity around the pensioners issue. We are fortunate in a sense here in Jersey that the exemption thresholds are very generous, far more generous than in the UK and far more generous than in Guernsey. And we must continue to upgrade those thresholds. I've thought about this issue a lot, and on the one hand, you've got pensioners that are being unfairly penalised, but equally, you've got some very, very wealthy pensioners who would gain huge advantage if they were taken out of the system. The solution I would look into, and I think does need investigation, is to whether one introduces a special pensioner exemption rate, so that you could therefore deal with the people being unfairly caught. And I think that is an option that should seriously be considered, that would get to the heart of the issue. Terry and his point about a mix of people working in the Council of Ministers. I think it's important to play the man or woman, not anything broader than that. And by that I mean you have to look at the skill sets, you have to think what they can bring to the party. And I think there are some very talented individuals who have a difficult political persuasion to me, but I believe I'm a team player. I can work with anyone. If anything, I might help to persuade their views, which are a little more misaligned. So I think it's important that you work with whoever's available.
Thank you very much. I think the difficulty with labels is that it's easy to slip into caricature. And caricature on the left and the right, as opposed to looking at the skill set and the contribution and the values of the person, importantly in a Jersey context, the values driving that teamwork. In terms of the double taxation, I think it's always a risk when you pick out one part of a tax system, which is a framework of tax. And whereas there may be some merit in looking at social security contributions, there are also other effects of tax on pensioners, whether that's about reforming long-term care, targeted relief, means-tested contributions, a whole range of things that need to be looked at in the round. And to conclude, I think we need to be really careful about generational unfairness here. There are a lot of younger people struggling with conditions on our island, and we need to balance both the contribution that older people make and also the future of our younger people. And it's a terrible balance that the next government will have to make sure it achieves.
Regarding the double tax on the Social Security pension, quite a few people have contacted me on that, and I've suggested that phasing this over 4 or 5 years might be the answer, because to do it in one thing might be too much of a shock for the actual tax system. So phasing it might be the answer. Regarding being elected Chief Minister, I wouldn't be standing for Chief Minister. I'd be more interested in the Public Accounts Committee for reasons I've stated earlier, and especially at the moment I can see between 30 and 100 million is being sidelined over the next 3 years for information technology. And as Public Accounts, I'd like to have a look at that. I did stand for Chief Minister in 2008 and I got 17 votes. What might have been, you'll never know.
Having worked as a police officer for 25 years, you don't always get to select your team. Your team's usually selected for you and you have to work with them. I think the critical thing is that you do have a political party, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the only people that actually are on the left. So you may have people that actually aren't standing with the political party who are also on the left. So I think you need to be very careful and select your team as to the people that you think you can actually work with, because we need to have a really good cross-section of the community to be able to get the best for the community. In relation to the double taxation of pensions, it is a difficult one, and I do think that a review needs to be looked at. But I am an individual who was fortunate to spend 25 years in policing, so that means I do actually get a pension from that role. And so I think it would be, dare I say it, unfair if I got my state pension without being taxed on it. So I do actually feel that we need to have a look at this properly so that we ensure that those that have won are actually dealt with fairly, but those like myself should be paying tax on it.
Thank you. Terry, thank you for your question, comrade. Call me old-fashioned, but I believe in something called democracy. And I think if the public vote for a States Assembly that reflects what they believe in, then our Council of Ministers should also reflect that. And that should be a mix of all the talents across the board. The number one criterion for whether you should be serving in government or not should be whether you love this island and are prepared to work hard to make it a better place for everyone. Who remembers Norman Brock, who was regarded as a dangerous renegade before he went in, and by the end was practically a beacon of the establishment because he worked hard for the people of Jersey, and that's what all of us ought to be seeking to do. William, in terms of the taxation of the state pension, whatever you think the rights and wrongs of it are, the reality of it is that if a member wants to bring an amendment to a government budget, by law, that budget will have to balance, and that proposition would cost £20 million to do it. So I think any member that says, I'm going to do this, I think is selling you false hope. But what could be real hope is that we could go back to where we were not that long ago, where in recognition of the contribution that pensioners have made through their working lives to Jersey, there could be a reintroduction of an enhanced pensioners' tax allowance like we used to have. That would, for many pensioners, bring them out of income tax altogether. That then makes them eligible for the health benefits that pensioners get as well, and that would be much more affordable and better targeted at those who most need it, and that's what Reform Jersey is pledging to do.
Thank you. If I can start with the pension question first, as recently appointed a chair of Age Concern, this is something I've had a lot of conversations on recently. And whilst I understand the double taxation point, and I would support a sort of a deep dive review into it in the next assembly, whatever we do, I feel has to be targeted to the lower middle income bracket. Otherwise, we'll be giving massive tax relief to people earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year with other pensions and income. So have a look. And actually, the estimates now, if we were to do that straight off, would be somewhere between 25 and 30 million pounds a year less taxation to the states. In relation to working with socialists, well, like everybody else, I look to get the best people in the assembly to work in a collaborative system. Better things happen when opponents choose respect over rivalry, and I think it's about working for Jersey, excuse me, not for each other. And actually, Sam has shown some refreshingly conservative attitudes since he's been working in this government. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I'll take Terry's question first, and I'll start by asking him a question, and I'd like to know how he feels about Sam becoming a beacon of the establishment. I think we're very lucky to have a democracy. I don't have any problem with inclusion. And if there's an inclusive council of ministers next time round, it's up to the chief minister to work with the 49 elected representatives. The whole business of democracy is winning the argument, and to win the argument, you've got 49 people to pick from. And if the council of ministers falls out with each other and they get the right result, then as far as I'm concerned, that's fair game. With regard to double taxation of pensions, that's actually not a straightforward one, because as I understand the taxation system, we don't all pay for the entirety of our taxation. It comes from different sources. So we've got to be careful about what we do there. The other thing is, if we start giving pensioners a rebate, somebody's got to pay for that. It makes a hole in the budget. The money's got to come from somewhere. And the question is, what are you going to take that from young people who are trying to get on the property ladder and to look after their children? So, as I say, we've got to tread with caution on that one. Thanks.
I'm not sure if Reform would have me as a member, but clearly I'm not a member of Reform. But what I would say is, obviously, they have 20% of the seats in the Estates Assembly currently, and any party moving forward maybe should expect to have a similar percentage of seats in ministries in government. That's the way to work together. That's the way to do it, and I think it's worked quite well in the last couple of years. The alternative is to go and have a fight on every single issue in the States Assembly and achieve nothing, probably. As for double taxation, I've already committed online to supporting a review, but what I would say is that I have spoken to possibly more pensioners in the last week who have explained to me how desperately difficult it is if you only have this other pension to survive on. I think at the moment in Jersey we've probably got the biggest gap between the rich and the poor that we've had for maybe a century. And we need to find a way to address that. We can make it easier for pensioners. The challenge is we have some pensioners in Jersey who are very wealthy. We also have some pensioners in Jersey who are very poor. And I think what we need to do is address the issue so that we're helping the people that need help and not those that don't. Thank you.
About the chief minister thing, you know, I am not coming to think I am going to get elected senator and then the next thing I'm going to be chief minister. No. I won't tell you, even if the 9 members, the other 49 members in total thought I had the capabilities, I'll say, hold on a minute. I am here to do a good job. Let's learn the business. There are guys who have gone ahead of me. I want to work under them. I would love to learn. I want to grow. I bring a positive attitude. Have you heard their testimony? They have been squabbling. I want to go and help them balance out. Okay? So I am coming with a diverse mentality. I'm going to bring something different, something that has not been there. Some of us here are coming with things they say, but they will not do actually what they're saying. Watch me. Give me the votes. You'll see I'll do exactly what I'm telling you. I spoke to Paul Trollick, who actually raised 5,300 signatures last year. Why is the question to these guys not to give us accountability? Why did they not actually do something about this double taxation in the last season? Why is it coming for the? I would have expected accountability, not us talking about we are going to do this, we are going to do that. Thank you.
Two good questions, and I think the answers have already been given. The Chief Minister should choose the people most suited to do the jobs, willing to work together as a team. To me, that is the criterion. And if that means people across parties, so be it. It's nice to label people left and right. If you look at the Labour Party at present, I think, it's not all the same view, far from it. On the double taxation, it's a really difficult issue. I would favour a review of all aspects of double taxation and of the pension and of the social security system. Steve just made a good point about pensioners struggling on the pension alone. Well, those people wouldn't benefit by exempting the state pension from tax because they're not paying tax on it already. So we need to look at the wider issue. I'm all in favour of reviews, but they cannot be in a single issue. So let's have a good look at the whole issue. I've had good correspondence with Paul. I think when a petition starts going, the government should meet them at an early stage to talk through the issues. It was not handled well in the States, I think has been acknowledged already.
With regard to people with political ideals, I think one of the first principles of risk strategy is diversification, and you need a nice cross-section to make good decisions. And okay, doesn't matter what your political view is, you bring skills and experience. So that's my view on that one. As far as double taxation is concerned, budgets are being stretched left, right, and centre. Where's the money going to come from? It's a big problem. I think it does great that we do have double taxation on pensions. I think one way of addressing that is by looking more at the means testing system, so that the money that the people really do need goes to those people.
Thank you. Well, I had to respond to the petition, and I think the problem with the petition was the system. The system says you have a debate. We had a debate, and the Assembly was generally not supportive. So it's the petition system that is part of the problem. I'm not entirely convinced that there is a problem with double taxation. The state pension is in the region of £14,000, and the tax allowance is £21,000. So you can have the state's pension plus another £6,000 or £7,000 of income before you pay any tax at all. If the problem we're trying to solve is pensioner poverty, exempting the state pension from tax does not help pensioners who are living in poverty. It benefits pensioners who have bigger pensions and other income and are doing all right, thank you very much. If pensioners are living in poverty, we have to address that properly by things like Pension Plus, by income support, by other means that make sure those people can live a decent standard of life. The tax thing is not right, and we cannot do it without a full review, because if that means younger people paying more tax so that older people don't pay tax and still get health spending, that's not going to help young people stay in the island or come back to the island, which is one of the things we've talked about a lot. We've got to be fair to everybody in terms of taxation. And I think that the age allowance was taken away because of discrimination. We can't discriminate on grounds of age. I've run out of time. Sorry, Terry.
Thank you very much, Terry, for the question. And I am the last one to speak, so nearly everything that I wanted to say has already been said. But I would just say that throughout my professional life, I've always built teams to work to their strengths. Until the 8th of June, we don't know which 49 members are going to be elected to the Assembly. We don't know who we are going to be able to choose. And there are a range of roles in the States Assembly, from scrutiny members, assistant ministers, ministers. So I think for me, the Council of Ministers is about balance, and I would build the team accordingly. When it comes to the pension, most of, as I've said, has been said, I think we need to remember that the old age pension is actually a social security benefit to which contributions are made by employers, employees and taxpayers. We call it a pension, but actually it is a contribution. And it's therefore not the same as a private pension. And if you do contribute to a private pension, you don't pay tax on your private pension contributions. So I would agree with the Treasury Minister that we're talking a little bit at cross purposes over this petition. Pensioner poverty is a worry. I think we should be maybe tweaking the income tax thresholds so that we can draw more pensioners into Pensioner Plus, community cost bonus and potentially income support. But as far as it goes, I wouldn't take off the benefit for pensioners.
Thank you. And that's all that we have time for. That brings us just before 9 o'clock. Just before everyone runs out of the door, we've just got a few things to mention. We are aware that not all of the questions were answered this evening. So if you would like to get in touch with any of the candidates, you can find their information on the vote.je website. Postal votes need to be received by the GREF by 12 noon on Sunday the 7th of June. If you're going away or if you're not able to get there on that date, on the election day of Sunday the 7th, then you can go to the pre-poll station at St Paul's Centre in St Helier. That's going to be open from the 26th of May until the 1st of June. Any information that you need is on the vote.je website. It is customary, just before we finish, for one of the candidates to close and say some final words of thanks, and tonight that is Mark Boliet, so I'll hand over to him.
Thank you. Some final words of thanks on behalf of all of the candidates. To Marcus and the parish team, thanks very much for magnificent arrangements. We had water tonight, which is more than we got in St Saviour. Hannah, thank you for keeping us in reasonable order, notwithstanding some of the attempts from some of my colleagues. But above all, thank you for all of you. This has been a great turnout. Thank you very much indeed for coming. You are what makes democracy happen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.